I remember coming home from church on a Sunday afternoon and thinking about the dinner that would be served that night. The thought of ham, greens, sweet potatoes, and macaroni made my heart skip a beat, but it was a team effort to prepare the meal, making the greens was my favorite part. The recipe comes from watching mothers and grandmothers for generations, so don't really ask for measurements and amounts. There aren't any. Today I'll be showing you how to prepare and cook collard greens. Once we decide we're going to be making collard greens, we have two important choices to make. The first choice is what kind of greens are we going to be using? So you have three options usually once you go to the grocery store: turnip, mustard, or collard greens. Turnip and mustard greens tend to fall apart once we start boiling everything down. Collard greens offer a more stable and hearty option. So I recommend using collard greens no matter what. However, you can combine the mustard, turnips, and collard greens in any option you want. It's entirely up to you. The second choice we have to make is what kind of meat are we going to be using. Usually smoked ham or smoked turkey are your options. Turkey tends to fall apart once it starts to cook, so the bones will disintegrate, and now you have shards of bone inside your dish, which is not a personal preference of mine. So I prefer to use the ham bones because it offers more fat to the dish, and later I can save the bones for a treat for my dog. And now we start preparing. Alright, so here we have all of our ingredients. So we have 4 bundles of collard greens. These are small bundles. We have all of our seasonings, which include garlic powder, black pepper, red pepper, meat tenderizer, Lawry seasoning, and Morton's Nature Seasons. We also have our Smithfield pork hocks, which are your ham hocks. And I usually use 2 ham hocks in a pot, but it all depends on what the person wants and the amount of collard greens you are preparing. Next, we're going to be putting the ham hocks in our stock pot. 2 ham hocks. And now we place it in the sink with a little bit of water. Okay, so we filled our pot with a little bit of water. We're not making that many collard greens, so I'm not going to completely cover up the ham hocks for boiling. And now we move this onto the stove where we'll simmer it at low heat. Now we have the ham hocks on the stove and they're starting to cook a little bit. So we're going to start adding our seasoning. First we have Morton's Nature Seasons, just a dash. You have Adolph's Tenderizer for the meat. The more tender the meat is, the better it'll fall off that bone and melt into those greens. And you just have typical black pepper, just a little. And a dash of cayenne pepper. Some people don't add cayenne pepper, but I like the profile it adds to the whole meal. Lawry seasoned salt. And McCormick garlic powder. Just a dash as well. And you cover this up. You bring the whole thing to a slow simmer. It'll take a while, but that allows you some time to clean your collard greens and pick the stems and everything out of them. Now that we have our water on with our ham hocks, it's time to start picking our collard greens. So collard greens come from a field. They're actually pretty dirty. A lot of them are covered with mud and sand once you get them home. So the first thing you have to do is clean them and prepare them properly. So what I'm going to be doing here is removing the stem from the leaf. Just right along the edge. Break it off at the top. It's a little thinner there. This is obviously a pretty tough part of the entire leaf. You don't really want to eat it. It doesn't offer very much flavor. And now that you take a look at the leaf without it, you can see you're checking for holes in it, little rabbit holes, whatever kind of animal got to it and tried to eat it in the field, and making sure there's not an overabundance of bugs on it. So I throw the stems away. I place them in the bag for later, and then I save this part in a stack, and that will go for a washing later. And then we'll peel them apart into smaller pieces in order to put inside the pot so that people can actually fit them in their mouths because they're pretty big leaves. Alright, I'm going to continue on with the peeling and cleaning process, and then I'll be back. Now that the greens are all picked apart and the stems are removed, we're going to wash the greens. So this just is really a rinse with cool water. I have a stopper in the sink at the bottom, and we properly wash the sink beforehand. So now you just add water to the greens. And now that you got a decent amount of water in there, you're just going to switch the greens around in it. And you're just knocking the sand loose from off of the greens, getting all the mud off of them. You can see sand and bugs and other things kind of just floating in the water. You have to make sure all of that is out because no one wants to eat that. And so after this, we'll do this about 3 or 4 more times. We'll stop, pour all the water out, and then we'll add more water again and rinse them about 3 or 4 more times just to make sure that all the sand and dirt from the fields and the packaging and everything else are just off of the greens so that they're good and clean and won't make anyone sick. Now that the leaves are all washed, we're going to start breaking them apart into smaller, more edible sizes for later, and then we'll add those to the pot. It usually takes about 2 hours for everything to cook down completely. So in the meantime, I recommend you start to make your other dishes like your macaroni or your chicken or anything else you're going to be making that day. Usually when my family prepares this meal, it's a whole team effort. Someone's cleaning the greens, someone else is cleaning the chicken and getting that prepared, someone else is peeling potatoes. It's a whole family ordeal, and it helps everybody get in the kitchen together and helps pass on these tools for future generations. Today I demonstrated how my family picks, cleans, and prepares collard greens. We discussed different meats and green choices. I explained how to pick and clean the greens, and lastly, I showed you how to cook the greens and gave ways to enjoy them. I hope this helps people learn how to prepare a family meal and get everyone involved in the kitchen. Also, this is an easy way to get something green on your plate without having something too healthy. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.